Welcome. In this session, I'm going to begin with a new chapter, that is organisms and populations. And this will be the last chapter which I'm going to discuss. Right. So now let's see what actually these organisms and populations. So here, whenever we use the word population, a population includes members, or I say the individual members of a species. So all the individual members of a species, they constitute a population. So say suppose if I say human population, the human population will include only human beings. All the members of the humans will form a population. So if I say a particular, okay, a dog, or I say dog population, then it includes only the dogs. And if I say a donkey population, then it includes only the donks, not any other species. I cannot say some tigers, some donkeys, and some monkeys all together as one population. So that is not at all correct. So the term population, which means it will include the members of that particular species only, right? So here, now we know the organisms. So those are the individual living beings, and these individual living beings of a particular species together form the population. Now these organisms and population we are going to study under a common heading called ecology, right? So what is ecology? So this ecology, it simply means it's the study of interrelationships, study of interrelationships, okay, between organisms and their environment. So the interrelationships that we are going to study between the organism and their environment. So here, nowhere on this planet Earth an organism is completely isolated. So it has to be present, okay, in a particular environment. So wherever it is present, there will be environment surrounding it. So we need to study the organism's relationships with the environment. So all together is what we say the ecology. So the definition of ecology is study of interrelationships between organisms and their environment here. Okay. Now let's look at the ecological organization. So ecological organization. So what's this ecological organization? Now this ecological organization, we need to begin with an organism. So that's the basis of the ecology, right? So now these organisms will constitute to form populations. So again, I'm telling you, population means you should not say that, okay, some tigers and some, monkeys and donkeys, including some humans all together. You cannot say a population. Say suppose there is an area. So in that area, you will find a lot of species present. So you will find earthworms in the soil, many insects in the soil, okay, in the air, and on the plants, right? And the plants itself, varieties of plants you see, right? So all this together, you cannot say population, right? So here, a particular plant species, all that members of that species will constitute a population. So earthworm population, a particular insect species population, and so on, right? So the members of a particular species will constitute a population, right? Now different populations living in a geographical area, that will constitute something called community, is called community. So say if you have taken a particular area, right? So even if you have taken our college campus, in that you will see different species of plants, right? So all the members of that particular species, so you might have seen gulmohar, so all the gulmohar trees, all that gulmohar trees in the campus will form a population, right? And you, not only that, you find many other plants and many other insects, including the human beings living in that campus, right? So all humans will form one population. So here different populations are present in a habitat, and that they constitute something called community, right? So organisms constitute something called populations, and populations will constitute, okay, community. And different communities will form ecosystems, will form ecosystem. Like we take a pond ecosystem, so in a pond ecosystem you find various communities, and these communities will have various populations, and each population has its own members of the species. Okay, so the organisms constitute populations, and population constitute community, and then ecosystem. And these ecosystems will constitute something called landscapes. The mountains, the rivers, so all they are the landscapes, and those landscapes will constitute something called biomes, right? And those biomes all together form the biosphere. So the whole earth is a biosphere that constitutes biomes, like tundra regions, okay, alpine regions. So that we're going to discuss about the biomes, the deserts, okay, in India, the tropical region. So they all the biosphere. Then the biosphere constitutes biomes. The biomes will constitute landscapes. The landscapes will have ecosystems, okay. One ecosystem may have different communities. A community will have different populations, and each population has its own, okay, members of a species. So this is what I say, ecological organization. Of course you have studied already the earlier one, that atoms combine to form molecules, molecules combine to form, different kinds of substances like proteins, carbohydrates. They have formed into cells, and the cells formed into tissues, tissues formed into organs, organ systems, and so on, and so, and then finally resulting in the formation of organism. So that's the below the level of an, organism, and this organism forms the basis of the ecology, right? So that's the ecological organization here. So let's see some examples which I'll give here for ecosystem. Later we'll see about that ecosystem, pond ecosystem. So in the next chapter, that is ecosystem, you may study in detail about that pond ecosystem. And coming to the landscapes will include mountains, hills, water bodies, okay, like rivers and so etc. They all constitute the landscapes. And coming to the biomes will include like savanna, the wetlands, okay, the deserts, etc. They are all biomes. They are very large areas. The savanna is a very large area, wetlands are very large areas, okay. They have, they may include these mountains, hills, and water bodies all together, and those landscapes may include, okay, several ecosystems, and they include communities, and they include the populations, and finally they all have these organisms, right? So that's the difference between the organisms and populations, right? So now let's see organism and its environment. So I told you ecology is the study of interrelationships between organisms and their environment. So now let's look at organism and its environment. Organism and its environment. So here the ecology, when we see ecology of an organism, so right, that at the level of organism will be the physiological ecology. So here ecology at organism level. So when you are considering the organism, so that is the basic part of this ecology, right? And when we are considering the ecology at organism level, and that will be actually a physiological ecology, and that's a physiological ecology. And what we mean by this physiological ecology, so this will actually tell us or make us to understand that how organisms are adapted to their environments. Okay, so this physiological ecology tells us that how organisms adapt to the environment, how they are going to adapt to that particular environment, and not only okay adapting to the environment, so they need to become successful in reproducing. Okay, so that adaptability is in terms of survival, means how the organism is able to survive in that particular environment and able to reproduce. See, there are organisms everywhere on this planet Earth. So there is nothing like a particular area doesn't have species at all. So almost right from the North Pole to South Pole, from okay east to west, whatever whatever the climatic conditions, whether it is sub-zero conditions or scorching regions having temperatures more than 50 degrees Celsius, even in those regions also we find organisms living. It means that the organisms living in sub-zero, they have adapted to that environmental conditions and able to survive in that environmental conditions and also able to reproduce. And similar way, the organisms living in very hot regions, like in case of deserts, whose temperatures may go up 50 degrees Celsius. So in that regions also the organisms have adapted to that particular environment and they were able to reproduce and survive in that okay regions. So that's what we say the physiological ecology. So the ecology at organism level, which is the physiological ecology, so where we say that how the organism is showing the adaptability to a particular environment in terms of its survival. So first it need to survive. If it is able to survive, then it can be proceed for the reproduction process, right? And when we see the conditions, that is the various regions on this earth, they are not or same. So that's what I say. In the north poles it's very very cool, sub-zero conditions. Tropical regions are hotter and deserts are much hotter where the rainfall is less. Some places there is more rainfall. It's not uniform. So on the planet earth, the conditions, the environmental conditions are not uniform, they are changing, right? So you can see the climatic differences between the organisms, I mean sorry, between the countries. So climatic differences between the countries, you can see that. and within the country also. So if you compare, the US with India, or the neighboring countries, so their climatic conditions are different, our climatic conditions are different, and within the country you can see the difference between the states. So the difference of climate between the states, and within the state you will also find, local climatic conditions different. So that much the variations you will be seeing. Right now, those variations, especially the seasons, what we say, so those seasons are because of the earth having a tilt. So it has a tilt in its axis. So due to tilt in its axis, the variations are seen. Okay, so this is the equator. So it is not present, straight like this, having exactly the north. So this is the north pole and this is the south pole. So it is not present like this. It has a slide. So if you say this should be the actual angle, and you can see it is tilted slightly, and this tilt in its axis is the reason for having various seasons on this planet earth. So tilt in its axis is the reason for having seasons on planet earth, having seasons on planet earth. And here this is the equator, so where the incident rays will be very high. Okay, so the sun rays will be falling very much directly on this equator here, right? And of course, as we go from the equator towards the north or towards the south, of course the temperatures in fact decreases. Okay, so this is temperature decreases, right? And we see here, because of this tilt in the axis, it has resulted in differences even in precipitations. Okay, so here the precipitation, it includes rainfall and also the snowfall. So both we say the precipitation, so it includes the rainfall as well as, okay, the snowfall will be coming under the precipitation here. And of course the regions, you can see some regions on this planet earth, there will be more, precipitation, like tundra regions which have a lot of snowfall, right? And of course the tundra regions do not exist in case of India, I'm telling in on planet earth, which will be very much closer to the north or south poles, you will see them. And then the rainfall regions. Okay, so like we see in case of India, the tropical forests, they will be having the rainfall. Okay, so very good rainfall in the tropical rainforest. And so like this, because of the tilt in the axis, it has resulted in various climatic conditions that exist on this planet earth. And when we see in case of India, so in India itself there are, a lot of climatic differences. So we can see that there are, deserts that are located in Rajasthan. So there are deserts in Rajasthan. Then we see here, okay, the rain-soaked Meghalaya forests. So we have, okay, Meghalaya forests that have, okay, more rainfall, that have more rainfall. Okay, so the Meghalaya rainforests that have more rainforests. Okay, then we have even deep ocean trenches. So you can see deep ocean trenches in case of India. then we have the torrential streams, right? And then the permafrost. So this is the regions, of course, the permafrost regions we don't see in case of India. So these will be the snow-laden polar regions. So these are snow-laden polar regions. So I'll write here the permafrost regions. So the permafrost regions means the regions that have all the time snow present. So these are snow laden regions, and they are usually seen in case of the polar regions. Okay, right? And then we will be also seeing uh, the high temperature mountains and thermal springs. So we have high temperature mountains, then thermal springs also we have. Okay, so it means thermal springs where there are volcanic activities. Okay, of course, not in India we see these volcanic activities, right? So there are other regions where you find the volcanic activity so very much active, and the regions around it where the lava is still flowing out. Okay, and there are certain regions around it that they will be still hot, and where the water will be if present or in boiling state. Okay, right? So that's the permafrost means always the soil is covered by the snow, right? And high temperature mountains also we can see them, and then thermal springs also we can see, of course, on the planet earth, not okay, or all in India. So we don't find some of those whatever I have told are not present in India. Then there will be stinking compost pits. So these stinking compost pits we can see even in case of India also we will see them. Okay, not only in India, there may be at several different locations we will see them here. Okay, and okay, so even when we see the intestines of a human being, we find variety of micro organisms living. So that again forms a the flora of intestine, where a lot of microbial species exist in intestine. It means that what here we see the species everywhere. So we find the species living in deserts. Okay, so very hot deserts even which exist in Africa, India. Okay, in Australia we find the deserts, and we find lot of species living in the deserts, adapted to that environment and able to reproduce in that environment. You will see them in deserts. You will find the species in Meghalaya forests who have very good or high rainfall. Okay, then we find the species living in deep ocean trenches. Okay, so where the pressure, the temperatures may be different. So the pressures will be very very high, and the temperatures will be very very cool. Okay, so even in that locations with withstanding that high pressures and cool temperatures, we find the living organisms. Even in torrential streams we find the living organisms. Microbes in fact are seen almost everywhere on this planet earth, including our intestines. So that's what here. And then when we see even in the snow laden regions, in the polar regions, we find, I hope you already know some examples like the penguins and the polar bears, right? And on high mountains also we find in the thermal springs also we see where the temperatures are more than 100 degrees Celsius. I think in biotechnology we discussed about a bacterium called Dermis aquaticus, which lives in very hot temperatures, and even in the stinking compost pits also we see the presence of these organisms, right? So this is the climatic conditions on the planet Earth, right? And the organisms living in different locations here. Now, when coming to India, so we have four major biomes. There may be other, okay, minor, but we'll see the four major biomes in India. So four major biomes. Okay, so of course the biome is a combination of different landscapes. So when we see the four major biomes in India, they include tropical rainforest. So we have tropical rainforest. Then we have deciduous forest. We have deciduous forest, means the forest where the plants will be shedding leaves in a particular season. So all of them will shed the leaves. Okay, so you will see only the branches of the plants. When the conditions come back, they again start producing the leaves and again they become green. So they are called deciduous forests. We see deciduous forests, okay, in India. So I say deciduous forest means the plants who shed leaves in a particular season. So they are called the deciduous forest. And we also see deserts in India, and then sea coast. We have a very long sea coast, right? So that's surrounded by, of course, the Bay of Bengal, the Indian Ocean, and the Arabian Sea are present, okay, on three sides, right? Now that's we have a very big or long sea coast. So we have deserts that's located in Rajasthan. So we have deciduous forest. We have a tropical, okay, rainforest. So these are four major biomes that we see in case of India. Now we will see even a graph that we need to see between the annual temperature and the mean annual precipitation. So it all depends on this precipitation. So whether a particular area will have more vegetation or less vegetation. If there are vegetations, automatically that part will be colonized by different species of animals. So that's what in tropical rainforest, the varieties of species existence is very, very high. So when you compare from the deserts, so deserts also have organisms, including plants, animals, microbes, and whatnot, but their number in the deserts is very less when compared with the tropical rainforests. So let's look at that graph. Right, so here I have drawn the graph for this one. So here on this axis we will see the mean annual temperature. So this is mean annual temperature, and it will be here mean annual precipitation. So mean annual precipitation that we are going to measure in centimeters, whereas this one in degrees Celsius. So when we see this here, okay, the graph, it means here per year how much will be the rain or snowfall, and here per year the mean values, all these are mean values which we have taken here. Okay, so mean yearly precipitation and mean yearly temperatures that we have mentioned. Okay, and when we see here, so this region that includes Arctic and Alpine regions. So it includes the Arctic and Alpine tundra regions. So these are the regions that will have a lot of snowfall, right? Of course, means always they are, permafrost regions. So Arctic and Alpine tundra regions you will see. Then this is a desert, and you can see in the desert it's almost less than 50 mean annual precipitation. So the rainfall is very very less and the temperatures are high. And then these are the regions which are called grasslands. Grasslands means the lands that are dominated by grasses. You don't find trees much. So mostly if you see a very large areas with a lot of grass, then they are all called the grasslands. And then, so this is a temperate forest. So here, this one is, I'm sorry, this one is the temperate forest. So these are temperate forests, and this is a coniferous forest. So where it is dominated by conifers, right? And the one what you see here on the top will be the tropical forest. So you can see the tropical forest, the rainfall is very high. So almost coming to 450, from 200 to 450 is that mean annual precipitation. So heavy rainfalls you can see in case of tropical forest, and the least rainfall you will see in case of deserts, right? And it's in the tropical forest where you will find more number of species when compared to the deserts, right? And here alpine regions means these are mountainous regions. So Arctic regions, okay, and also the mountainous regions. So the tundra regions, what we say, mostly they are covered by snow all the time, right? And you can see there the mean annual precipitation, so that will be between 52 to almost for 150 centimeters per year will be that snowfall you see in these Arctic and Alpine tundra regions. Okay, so this is the various the biomes here. So these are all the various biomes in the world you see. So these are all various biomes, and these biomes which we see with the precipitation and the temperatures here. Okay, right? So that's about the various biome distribution with respect to this annual temperature and also annual precipitations. And when we see in case of India, we'll see the tropical forest, we'll see deserts, and we'll also see to some extent the grasslands and alpine regions. Of course, alpine meadows we may find in the regions of the Himalayas. Okay, so that also you may see, right? But not the coniferous forest. We don't find tundra regions. We don't have, and we don't have temperate forest also. So we don't have temperate forests, coniferous forests, and the tundra regions or Arctic tundra regions. We have alpine meadows that is different from alpine tundra regions. So these exist in case of India, right? So now here every organism has its range in its environment. So means when we see an organism, so where it lives, so it will be living in its particular range. So say suppose only up to 30 degrees Celsius. It cannot live beyond that 30 degree. Of course, there is not exactly, it's not like, how we see in other conditions that if 30 degrees, if they cross, they are not going to die. No. So that will be not seen in case of living organisms. So there are certain organisms within them, if they are produced sexually, they may have that variations which can help them to withstand a little more temperatures. Okay, so usually certain organisms will have their own ranges, and the temperatures and the habitat and habits they have, okay, and how they are adapted in that particular environment. So every organism has a defined range of conditions. Okay, so every organism has defined range of conditions. So there is a limitations on the conditions in which that organism lives. Okay, that is that conditions are like, it can tolerate, it has to tolerate that conditions, defined range of conditions that actually it can tolerate. And the diversity in the resource utilization. Okay, so it uses various resources. So it uses various resources. It means if you take an example of food, so a particular species does not depend only on one type of predator, so or some other organism. It all depends on, so it may change, or it may eat on varieties of food, like birds. So they eat on insects, they may eat on what I say fruits as well as some species. So that is the various resources they utilize. Okay, right, and their distinct functional role, and their distinct functional role. So every organism that has a defined range of conditions, it has various resources and has a distinct functional role in the ecosystem. So every organism will have a distinct functional role in an ecosystem, right? So of course, it's the human beings that say that a particular organism is not required. Okay, that is not at all important. So these tigers are killing human beings, or the lions are attacking, they are unnecessarily present. So it is not like a species is unnecessarily present on this planet Earth. So every species, it has its own role to play, and uh, we have no authority to remove them, right? So that's what every organism has that distinct functional role in the ecosystem. Various it has that ability to use those various resources in that conditions, and has a defined range. So whatever that, all together will constitute a niche. So it's the niche of the organism, right? So it's called the niche of an organism, that includes these resource utility, the distinct functional role in the ecosystem, together will constitute its niche. Okay, so here utilization, so various resources utilization and the distinct functional role, okay, in the ecosystem altogether will constitute its niche. Now when we see, okay, uh, an ecosystem, right, so it will be having both abiotic factors and also the biotic factors, right? So in an ecosystem, we will find abiotic factors, so that together constitutes the environment around the organism, and the biotic factors, which includes the organisms. So here we will mostly concentrate on the major abiotic factors that include this water, okay, temperature, then soil and light. So these are abiotic factors. And when coming to the biotic factors, so it includes, various pathogens, means the organisms that cause diseases. So organisms that cause diseases. See here, biotic factors, which means all that living organisms in that particular ecosystem, they all constitute those biotic factors. So pathogens will include, then it also includes predators, okay, then it also includes competitors, right? So like this we find variety of organisms that exist in an ecosystem, right? So etc are all those biotic factors. So in an ecosystem, we find abiotic factors and also the biotic factors. So we will study these things, okay, one by one. First, we'll study about these abiotic factors. I will discuss how the light, soil, temperature, and water influence, the organisms. Okay, all those things we'll see under these abiotic factors, right? So I hope it's clear. So every organism, it will have a defined range of conditions, and the resources utilization, it has various resource utilization, and then you will find the organism has a distinct role in its ecosystem, which altogether constitutes its niche. And in an ecosystem you will find abiotic and biotic factors, right? In the next session, I'll discuss about these abiotic factors one by one.